Well, hello everyone, and thank you to Damian Kiersmer for the invitation. Thank you to Christina and Sandra, Mediamorphosis Ecuador, for organizing this. And thank you to everyone we don't see who works for the university who make this happen. And finally, thank you for you to take the time to listen to my talk. I've been a photojournalist and war correspondent for over 15 years. I've become a director in immersive media using virtual reality and augmented reality. And I would define myself as an artist today. But if there is one common thread in between those different positions, it is my subject. War is what interests me, and war is what I try to translate. I don't have a medium anymore. And you'll see at the end of the talk, I'll explain what is my latest project. But before we get there, let's try to start at the start with my work as a photojournalist and what I've learned from it. There is nothing mechanic in photographing war. It's, before everything else, something you need to work with your own emotion. You need to channel this. You need to see the people in front of you as yourself and try to translate with the best of your abilities what they are going through. I wanted my work to be impactful. In order to be impactful, I needed to be naive. I needed to think that if I could go there, if I could photograph a conflict, then perhaps something would change. So I did this with a lot of conviction for quite some time, actually over 12 years. The last few years were a bit more complex, but I'll explain also later. And I went to one war, and then another one, and then a third one. Not to say that they are the same. There is always a lot of forces that provokes a war. It's always a different context. It's always different human beings. But there is a common thread. It's the suffering, the injustice, the indiscriminate nature of a war, and the people who go through. I will show you a last portfolio of two different conflicts. I was, no, thank you. I've been lucky. I've been lucky to survive those conflicts emotionally, physically. I've been lucky also because I worked for the best magazines, or what I thought were the best magazines. And what I mean by this, I was reaching audiences that have a spending power, that have a right to vote, that have high education. People that I thought could help me make a difference. But the reality of war is really hard to make a difference. And so instead of changing war itself, I put my focus somewhere else. I wanted to change the perception we have with war. I wanted to bring war closer to you, but not physically, obviously, but in your understanding. War itself is complicated because ethically it became impossible. And I'll explain why. If I go on a conflict and I photograph civilians, they are suffering. They are going through the worst parts of their life. They might have lost relatives, they might be in great danger, they have no more homes. And I'm here with a camera. Why would they accept to be photographed? Would you? They did, because there is a moral contract, something we don't speak about, something my colleagues don't speak about. They accept because they think I can make a difference. They accept to show the suffering because they do believe me, been there, reporting on this, can bring change. And the reality is I can't. It's too complicated. There's just too much force in places. And I'm alone with my camera and my emotions. So as I said, I changed my focus. And I wanted to show how much we should be careful about war before we go to war, before we sign up for violence. There's a lot of reason for that. Storytelling, very powerful storytelling, can bring us to this. But very powerful storytelling can also bring us together. So my next project happened by accident. I mean, is there an accident? I was in Gaza. I was doing an assignment for Vanity Fair magazine in New York. And I was photographing what was happening there. I had a recorder with me. And I photographed that day very differently. I did some portraits. But not just portraits. I also asked the fighter 6 questions. And I recorded the answers. Who's your enemy? Why? Did you ever kill him? What is violence to you? What is peace to you? Where do you see yourself in 20 years from now? With this, I crossed the border. I went to Israel. And I did the same with Israeli soldiers. My idea was to do something radically different. My idea was to give you a sense of agency. And to do so, I would put a portrait on a wall. I would put his enemy right across the room. They would look at each other. And I would draw a border right in between. And when you would step on one side, you would hear the answers of one. And when you would step on the other side, you would hear the answer of the other. Because based on my experience, even if I diverge politically, on both sides, there are always humans. But war brings dehumanization. And in that sense, my work was to try to rehumanize. And with this, not even the ambition to enemies to rehumanize each other, but for you, the audience, to see their similarities, to understand that people who've been trained to kill each other can still have the same basic humanity. And this is where we can start reconciliation. And this is also something I believe audience can take for their own life. There are people we don't like in our life. It's a normal human experience. People we dislike, people we find different. But if we can see in between two enemies similarities, it might be harder for us to deny the humanity of the people we don't like. So I just didn't do Israel and Palestine for the photo project. I did also South Sudan and Kashmir. Long-standing conflicts. Conflict where you are born with an enemy. You don't have the space to think, you don't have the space to be critical. Obviously, some people do, and that's a little ray of light, but most people don't. And then, we'll see, been very lucky in my life. I got invited at Harvard University, and I've never attended a university in my life. So it was the first experience for me. And that year allowed me for the first time not to rush to a conflict, not to move from one place to another, and to ponder and to reflect and to try to back up a little bit. On the way, I met some people at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology who in return invited me to spend some time with them as an artist. And there I discovered virtual reality. It was September 2013. A small company called Oculus was coming to the campus presenting their hardware, virtual reality. I had no idea what it was, I mean, vaguely, but I had never tried it. I can go to a conflict zone, but I have vertigo. And what happened that day? When they put the headset on me, I was on top of a mountain. I looked down. Oh, I felt vertigo. And I wonder, what was this medium that could override my rational? Because I knew I was sitting at MIT. I knew I was in a comfortable chair. I just had spoken to the guy who gave me the headset. But it was 2013, there's so much to discover about this technology. I left the building, I walked 100 meters, and I turned back. And I climbed back to the third floor, and I talked to the engineers, and I says, I have a project. I put photos on the wall with two people, they're looking at each other. Do you think we could bring those people in the room? And they told me that had never been done, but yeah, technology was mature enough to do such a thing. And here I had the idea, like, okay, let's push a bit here. Let's see what happens. Let's see also where journalism is going with this. Because there is an element we all using every day. It's body language. So what would happen if I bring fighters in a room in between yourself, not armed, not threatening, but there? And my voice would ask the questions, but they would answer to you. You would do exactly what you're doing now. You would observe, listen, and internally read the body language. Understand a bit more who they are. Maybe feel a bit of insecurity or overconfidence or something very human, unease. And we did that. And it had never been done indeed. And it took 4 years. I went back to Gaza. I went back to Israel. Then I went to Congo, the DRC. I took 2 different factions there. It's an ongoing conflict. And then I went in Central America, something you might be familiar with, the Majas, MS-13 and Barrio 80. Very violent gangs. Really hard to set up those interviews. But we made it. And at the end, it became the enemy. And I think I've said enough. I'm just going to show you a little video. That is the photo project, what brought me to the VR experience. I've been a war correspondent and photojournalist for about 18 years. to go into some of the darkest places in this world with a strong motivation to give a voice to those people and have an impact. But I realized along the way the situation is not changing, so there's only two roads. Either you quit or you rethink. We need to experiment with journalism, taking new mediums into new platforms, because otherwise we'll be irrelevant very quickly. So how can new technologies transform the way we experience news? First time I tried VR, I felt the power of the medium, and I just wonder what's going to happen to journalism if those guys come out of the photographs, if they are in the room with us. Is it possible? The aim of the enemy is to bring two individuals that have been trained to kill each other and allow people to realize that the humanity of those people on both sides is exactly the same. Not through a story, through an experience. Young people are growing up and they're going to have a choice to take a weapon or not. So this is exactly my target audience. The people who can have an impact.
בעיקר העיף אותי. אתה מסתכל אבו חייל בעיניים, אתה לא יכול באמת להגיד שהוא האויב שלך. בשביל החירות שלו כמו שאתה נלחם בשביל זה.
The DNI decided to support the enemy at the point where we had all the contents, but we needed to deploy that. That has made the work alive. Perhaps in the future, if more of those things are created, you'll have audience that care more, you have audience that are more engaged, and eventually this is something that will trickle down to a societal effect. And this is what journalism is supposed to be. I'm not going to read what you can read, but I'm just going to say something in a minute about that. Virtual reality, a photo camera, a pen, all of this are just tools. You can destroy a house with a hammer, you can build one. You can do the same with VR. You can bring people together, you can put them apart. It's about you. It's about your intentions. It's about the world you want to live in. It's about the story you care. It's about... We always think journalism needs to be impartial, and it is impossible because we have a social backgrounds. We come from wealthy family, we come from poor family, middle class family. We have different experiences. We have different culture, whether we come from Ecuador, like me, from Belgium and Tunisia, from the US, from China. We can't get rid of who we are and not put it in our journalism. If we speak about immigration, we should take someone that has an immigration background to speak within. So all of this to say, your story is valued, your story is valid. It's about you to make it live. And the tools are just tools. Use them for what they're good. But don't think the tools will fix the story. Don't think the tool will make your intention clear, because it's not going to happen. It's your intention that needs to be clear, and that's something you need to pursue. And with this, you need to bring on the table the people you're talking about. This is what I did for the project after. When I was in Congo for the enemy, I was obviously arranging those interviews to be safe, to be well done, to be understood, well recorded. But I wanted to understand the reason of the conflict. And the reason of the conflict is the immense wealth of Congo. They have everything. They have gold, they have hydropower, they have diamonds, they have coltan, they have 60% of the cobalt. There's not a single battery here that doesn't work without cobalt. We have Congo in the room here. Yet, the miners in Congo, they are paid $1, $2. So We live beautiful technological life. We have new tools. But there is people behind. And there is a cost. And there is an injustice. So, as a photojournalist, it was simple. I have a project. Usually with me it's an injustice that I want to highlight, that I want to show. And then I have a magazine. And the magazine has an audience. And if you think TV, the same. If you think print media, video, it's the same. But I wanted to do something a bit different. And instead of doing project, medium, audience, what happened if you switch audience and project? What happened if you put your audience first? So, injustice, artisanal miners, $1 a day, working in conditions that are not acceptable. There is not a single mine in the Western world with those conditions. Yet, not a problem in Congo. Not a problem in third world countries. It doesn't touch us, we don't see it, we don't feel it. And when you put your audience first, the question comes, who has the potential of an impact on the subject I want to highlight? Who are the people? And you know, happens that it's you. And not you, general. Forget everyone above 24, you're disqualified. Everyone under, it's you. Because you're going to be the one who buy electronics in the future. Some of you are going to become leader. Some of you are going to have your own companies. And you're going to be able to make a choice. Where do I buy my computer? Which company has not pushed enough in the supply chain to control and to make sure there is no injustice? So I created 7 grams. And 7 grams is really, because your medium is a smartphone, I turned everything in it. Here we go.
7 Gram is a journalistic project that tells the story of your smartphone through your smartphone using augmented reality. Your phone contains around 7 grams of rare or precious minerals such as tungsten, cassiterite, cobalt, or gold. One country has these minerals in abundance, the Democratic Republic of Congo. And those are essentials in making our device the powerful tools we have come to embrace and that have completely changed the way we communicate, study, work, or love. 7 Gram exposes the hidden consequences that the manufacturing of our electronics has and offers solutions to prevent more abuse and injustice from reaching our electronics.
But 7 grams is on your phone. The reason of 7 grams is your phone, your computer, everything that is electronics that need those resources. Electrical car, cobalt. So, you understand? I've been a visual journalist for most of my career. And about 3 years ago, I live in Berlin, I went to see a contemporary art dance performance. Nothing unusual, something that I like. But that evening, 3 times I had tears coming to me. It's 1 hour long, dancers, a choreography, lights, some objects. As I walked back home, I couldn't understand, like, why those emotions? Where does that come from? There is no story. And before I got home, I understood. I was half of the story. I had projected on the performance what was going through me. And it came like, it's obvious. This is what I need to do. Because you see, my problem with war is, what can I show you? What is your threshold? What can you ingest? Because what you've seen is what I think everyone can ingest. But I could put more. I've seen more than that. And war is even more awful than that. But then I decided, okay, I'm done showing war. I'm done showing war because you know what war is. You've seen it. You have image. And if my work becomes different, and if I'm just the trigger of your imagination of war, I have no problem with that result. I will always stay within your limit. And I knew that to do that, I couldn't be a journalist, I couldn't be a documentary immersive director. I had to become an artist. I had to push all the things that I've been doing and do them differently. And it happened very quickly after. 7 months later, I had the urge to go to Ukraine. I live in Berlin. Driving takes 6.5 hours, and I'm in a country at war. It couldn't be that close. I took my car and I went. And I was prepared to do a project. I never did that project. It was a visual project, but I was still, with that project, trying to find ways to trigger imagination. But then I showed up on a petrol station had been destroyed by missile strikes. And then the Ukrainian military police, close to the front line, came and asked who I was, who my producer was. We were just the two of us. And it was July, it was super hot. The network was patchy. They had a hard time checking who we were, even though we were legit. It took time, and during that time, I noticed that on the ground, there was a lot of sharp objects. And my first thought was, we're going to pierce a tire. We're going to pierce again a tire. Because yes, you do this a lot at war. And I didn't want it. So I started taking them and moving them. And then I had the object in my hands. And I said, this is telling. It's heavy. It's heavier than what it looks like. And it's sharp. It's really, really sharp. I took another one, heavy, sharp. A third one, heavy, sharp. All of them heavy and sharp. And I thought, there's something in this object. I'm an artist. I'll take things differently. And I brought some back to Berlin. And then I did for the whole summer some research. And a new project came up. It's called In 36,000 Ways. And it's a trigger for your imagination. In this project, you won't see war. You won't see a single photo. But what you will see, what you will feel, is the object in your hand. And I'm flying right after this talk because I'm opening up a little prototype in Amsterdam where the public will, for the first time, discover this experience and feel the object. And I hope it's going to work. What I mean by this is you've seen about 25 years here of wanting to do good, of realizing that I had been naive, but realizing if I'm not naive, I can't do things. I need that naivety. And for a few moments in my life, I wasn't naive anymore and I couldn't create anything. So embrace who you are, embrace your values, accept change. And yeah, I'm just going to quickly show you. This is the first iteration, just photograph. Those are shrapnels. And then I reproduce the language that the engineers are using to create those objects, such as analysis of a fragmentation warhead on soft targets. The language they're using is completely sanitized. The reality of what these things do is not sanitized. It's brutal. It's called In 36,000 Ways because when a missile strikes, it can produce up to 36,000 shrapnels. The blast is lethal 70 meters. Those fly 500 meters. They are the killers. And we don't know that. And we hear missile strikes every day on the news. But we've become numb to this. So I'm trying to bridge the distance. And eventually, that's the exhibition I had in Berlin, I started hanging things. I've reproduced the size of the warhead with the shrapnels. But that was just the first try. Now I'm doing a small boost, 2.5 meters. And eventually, I'll get there. Or there. I want you to walk through this And what I'm going to do is using new technologies, not VR, not AR. I'll use thermal cameras, and I'll capture your heartbeat. And everyone will see and hear. While you're in the middle of this frozen explosion, alive, this is my message. Resilience, knowledge. Good luck for the rest. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Karim. Se dan dando cuenta el honor y la posibilidad de conectar con una historia viva del periodismo. Karim, ¿llega la traducción? Bien. ¿Tienes lo que me mostraste ayer en el desayuno, en el bolsillo? Aquí está. Una esquirla rusa, real, traída de Ucrania, que lo inspira a Karim para contar su historia. Tenerla en la mano es fuerte, es poderoso, es cruel. Karim, ¿cómo vivís esta transformación tuya de periodista a artista? ¿Cómo es el recorrido? ¿El periodista deja de existir o está todo el tiempo?
I'm still interested, and I'm only interested in non-fiction. So journalism is still there, to some extent. The journey is a journey of frustrations. This is what is underlying everything I told you today. Being naive, trying to do something, trying to bring change, and then eventually being frustrated because I couldn't. And then at this point become critical. Should I keep going or should I stop? I've been lucky in a way that each time I thought about stopping this, I had an idea how to do it differently. And then I crossed paths with people who supported me in my way of thinking and allowed me the time and the space to think, so that's a privilege. But it's a journey of frustration. This is something I want to tell you. Frustration, there's nothing wrong about frustration. It's okay to be frustrated. What you do with those frustrations is you rethink what you do, you rethink the system in which you do, and you try to find a solution. And if you don't, it's okay too. You've tried, and that's good enough. And you can move on with your life and do other things. There's not one way to be happy. There is not one way to have a sense of purposes. What is important is there is only one way to be true to yourself and to your feelings, and to follow that.
Bien, antes de ir a las preguntas, te voy a cambiar de mundo. Uno de los ejes que tenemos aquí en Mediamorfosis tiene que ver con lo que está pasando con la tecnología y la inteligencia artificial. ¿Cómo te relacionás vos como periodista, como artista, con la inteligencia artificial? ¿Hasta dónde te acercás? ¿Cuánto la tomás? ¿Cuánto la dejás? ¿Cómo es tu vínculo en la creatividad con la inteligencia artificial?
I'm not using AI at all. I'm observing AI. I'm actually part of a group at the Max Planck Institute in Berlin, the Human Development Lab, the Center for Humans and Machine, who's looking at the consequences of AI, how it's going to change us, how it's going to change our relationship to ourselves, to our peer, and to the technology, and eventually what is the world going to become. Professor Dr. Iliad Rahwan is proposing a new field of study, nothing less, that is called science fiction science. How can we study technologies that don't exist? How can we study the effect they'll have on people that are not born yet? It's fascinating. I really recommend, remember, and do some research on that. Science fiction science at the Max Planck Institute in Berlin. It's a very promising field, and it's so if I have one thing about AI, I'm observing it, and I've learned to say I will never do that. I might do a project on AI eventually when something crosses my mind, but it's not the case today. It's not on my to-do list. Now, outside of my practice as a human being, I'm worried. I'm worried of what this is going to do. But I think that's the privilege of all the people, is to be worried about the new things that are coming. And in that sense, I'm just in the right place. But staying critical, and taking the time to observe and to investigate. And when I say investigate, it's not spending 24/7, but to find people who know and who have knowledge, and then go and try to find those sources to make an informed opinion.
Bien, aquí en la sala, Karim, aquí en la sala tenemos muchos estudiantes de periodismo. En líneas generales, ¿qué mensaje le das a los que están empezando el camino del periodismo hoy, a partir de tu experiencia en los medios tradicionales y en los nuevos medios y en las nuevas tecnologías? ¿Qué mensaje les das a quienes están comenzando el camino?
Well, it's part of the message that I said before, is you cannot be completely balanced in journalism, but you still need to be critical. You need to be open-minded. You need to be aware of the confirmation bias, that what you think is not necessarily the reality, and interrogate that. And have a team around you that can help you doing this. And when I say a team, is working with people that would challenge your assumption, that would push you further. That's called an editor. To find a good organization that would support that. But it's not easy, because when you start, especially as students, and you integrate an institution, it's not really the place where you can going to be able to express yourself. But observe how things are run. And don't hesitate to be critical. I'm not saying jump on the table and tell them they're wrong, but get that. Understand when it's wrong, when you don't think it's right, when the speed is too fast, when the depth is not enough, when it doesn't reach what you hope you could achieve, because those are frustration. And those frustrations can help you design in a better way, can help you think and approach your work with more humility, with more engagement, and eventually with more success as transmitting the story that you think are important to the people you want to show them to.
Bien, tenemos preguntas para Karim. Aquí adelante tenemos, hay un micrófono por ahí. Bien, por acá. Por acá. Y ya nos preparamos para la siguiente pregunta luego.
Hola, primero en realidad felicitarte por el trabajo que realizas. Mi pregunta viene más desde el lado personal. ¿Cómo tú logras sobrellevar psicológicamente, emocionalmente, el tema de ver de frente, de muy cerca, las muertes? Yo soy realizador de un medio de acá, Ecuavisa, y para mí me resulta súper complicado estar frente a la situación y luego tener un cambio emocional y psicológico de cambiar un escenario completamente triste, de ver a una familia que pierde a su padre, a su madre, y luego de unos minutos ver un escenario sumamente feliz. Para mí es complicado y vuelvo y repito, desde el lado sentimental o desde el lado desde tu emocional.
I don't think I do. I don't think there is a way to do it. I don't think there is a recipe for that. I think you just become richer because you see the wider scope of life, what life is really. And most people can't do that. And it's okay. You don't have to be able to do it. Some people can. But I had a conversation on one-on-one earlier with someone who says she would like to become a war correspondent. And I had to warn, it's great, you should if you want. But I told her, I'm going to tell you everything. You're never going to forget what you see. So make sure you're prepared. And the problem is you cannot be prepared. There is nothing that prepares you for that. But eventually I find myself richer. I have a trauma, I have a PTSD, but in my line of work, my subjects often have PTSD. And so I'm just more like them, and they're more like me. And that makes us closer, and that makes me more understanding. I like to tell my kids, what doesn't kill you makes me stronger. It's a bit harsh to say to kids, but it's true. So, yeah, that's my, I don't have a solution for that. Thank you for your question.
Gracias. Siguiente pregunta. Por allá, el micrófono.
Una pregunta respecto a tu experiencia de trabajo. ¿Alguna vez llegaron a amenazarte por el trabajo que haces y el mensaje que quieres entregar?
Excuse me, could you repeat? Yes. I'm not gonna, I mean, it's not that it happens often. I think if I can do one thing for you today is the myth of the war correspondent is a myth. We don't spend our time dodging bullets. We spend a lot of time waiting. Spend a lot of time in psychology trying to access the story. But along the way, you get threatened, yeah. And it's again a call that you do individually at the moment. Do you push further? Do you back up? I've done both. Depends on the size of the threats, the seriousness of the threats. And ultimately, it depends on your instinct, because if you want to cover conflicts and wars and violences, you cannot do so rationally. Rationally, your body and your mind will tell you, go away, get away, don't let the danger get too close. So if you decide to do this, you need to go with something else. And that something else is an instinct. An instinct is not something you can rely 100% on. I've lost friends who were very instinctive, and I'm part of the lucky one. But instinct becomes like a muscle, something you train. It's something, eventually the instinct is always acute and always there. And if it becomes too much, it's called a trauma, but it's there. So yeah, that's perhaps a little piece of advice is develop your instinct, trust it. We're very smart. We have a frontal cortex that allows us to communicate and to do a lot of things. But ultimately, we're very, very animal. And so let that part take over sometime, not to do harm, but to keep you safe. We have a question here.
Bien, otra pregunta.
Hi, Karim. It's me again. We had a one-on-one. I was the one who asked him about becoming a work correspondent.
Here we go.
Yeah. So in our meeting, you told me of a quote you posted on Instagram today, and it inspired me so much that I want you to share it with more people so that more people can hear you.
I don't have my phone on me, if you allow. I need. Oh, you have my phone? I have no. I need my phone.
Sorry.
I have my phone with your Instagram.
Okay. It's okay. I have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just give me a second. I wasn't prepared. I have it. You can't fix chaos. You can't end suffering, but you can refuse cruelty. You can choose integrity. You can make one small corner of existence less unbearable. That's all.
Bien, ¿alguna pregunta más? ¿Tenemos? Sí, por acá. Vamos.
Muchas gracias. Bueno, buenos días. Tengo una consulta acerca de cómo, bueno, ¿cuál es tu consejo para crear el pitch perfect? O sea, yo sé que algunos ya han tenido el one-on-one contigo, pero ¿cómo podrías vender un proyecto tan innovador a los medios o tal vez a un sponsor que sí es un proyecto muy innovador, pero podría ser tecnológicamente y muy costoso?
I think you need credibility. Talk about what you know. Talk about your own experiences. They're valid. You're young. Don't ask me to talk about your world. Talk about your world. Talk about what you feel is your expertise. And yes, be innovative. Think outside of the box. go into the uncomfortable zone of not knowing, put puzzle. Those projects are puzzles. They are emotions, they are intentions, they are technology, they are audiences. All of this is little pieces. I got ADHD, so it's good for me to do this job because my brain is scatters. I go left, right, and center. But this left, right, and center help me design thinking, problem solving, and it becomes an asset. What I said to my kids, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's really trying to be innovative, but with the credibility of your point of view. Don't talk about a situation you have no relation to. And if there is something you want to talk about and you don't have any relation to, before you sell the project, create a relation to this. Become part of a community. Spend time, learn, and then speak. Another element I think that is powerful is to bring the stakeholders of a project around the table. And when you go and meet a founder, is to say, it's me, it's my intention, but you know what? I also have my subjects with me. I also have my audiences with me. And we're going to be designing this together. I'm boss, I will take the decision, but I will take those decisions informed by all of those. I'm not just going to write things down in my room and then present it to you. So those are elements that can bring credibility, that can bring trust in your work. You need to be talented. There's a lot of people out there. So you need talent, you need luck. All those things are also hard work. I mean, not the luck, but talent. Nobody's born with a magical talent. It's hard work. Yeah, I wasn't born to go to war. I never thought about going to war, and then eventually it became the subject of my life. So it's about, you know, and now I have a credibility, and now I can do a crazy project, and people will start listening to me because I've done what I've done in the past. But it hasn't been always the case. I had to take a risk one day. I had to take a plane and go to war. And I had no one pushing me there. It was the opposite. Everyone says, you're out of your mind. And on the process, I thought I was out of my mind too. I was scared. And I'm still scared. It doesn't change. My fear hasn't gone away. But I have experience and I have an instinct. And this doesn't mean the next time I go to war, I'm not going to get hit. But I take my risk, and I try to do that with maximum of security, using what I have for me, but knowing it's an unpredictable zone. So I'll accept whatever comes, and I'll try to stay safe, obviously. Thank you for the questions.
Karim, viniste por muy pocas horas a Ecuador para participar de Mediamorfosis y yo te lo agradezco profundamente. Ahora te vas al aeropuerto, directo de aquí, te vas al aeropuerto y te vas a Ámsterdam. ¿Qué va a pasar en Ámsterdam?
Yes.
¿Qué es lo que vas a hacer? ¿Qué es lo que vas a mostrar? Que algo nos contaste. Contanos más, ¿por qué? ¿Qué es lo que pasa en IDFA y qué es lo que vas a presentar?
So you saw the sketches of the big project that I want to do. It's ambitious. It's never been done before, but that's not the first time for me. But before I get there, I want to test the numbers of assumption I have. I want to make sure that this object is as powerful as I think, and that all the mechanisms I've put in place for the people to have a moment of introspection with this shrapnel and with the reality of fragmentation weaponry is designed in a way that works. So it is going to be the first time the public go through that. People who have no idea what they're about to discover, they're just going to read a short text. A warning also that the experience can be unsettling. And I'm going to learn. The whole point of this is I'm going to learn from my audiences what works and what doesn't, and how I can make it better. So it's a smaller version, it's an individual version, but my hope is in 2026 to do the larger, crazy projects and to have much more people at this point going through and understanding what is the reality of a missile strikes, what is hidden in fragmentation weaponry, how they works, and eventually make better decisions when they can.